Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm JC and today's video is episode 7 in my editing and revising my manuscript series. And I will admit up front, I did not start this episode when I should have. Because I think episode 6 left off with me finishing the re-outlining process. And then camp started. And so episode 7 should have picked up at the beginning of writing my second draft. That's not where I picked up at. I realized around chapter 7 that, I need to be making some clips for the episode. So yeah, I do go back and explain what happened in the chapters up until that point. And after that point, until where I am currently at, which is at chapter 12. And yeah, so I'm just going to turn it over to Pass Me, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, welcome to episode 7 of the editing and revising my manuscript series, in which I have now moved out of the outlining phase and I am working on redrafting the second draft of When Love Calls. I've not come on in a while to do an update, which is why I'm now having to figure out everything all at once. Because I am in chapter 7 now. So yeah, I've missed a lot. I will say, so chapter 1, well, right now we're on the only POV that the ex is going to get, and I'm really excited about writing this for some reason. I have no idea why. I wasn't as excited when I was outlining his chapter, but I am really excited about writing this chapter. We've gone through, so chapter 1, I did struggle in the beginning trying to figure out how to describe this wedding dress that she was staring at herself in while she's in the mirror of a bridal shop. Which sort of kind of alludes to her ambiguity and her, not ambiguity, I'm sorry, that's not the right word. It kind of alludes to her indecisiveness when it comes to this wedding. She's supposed to be happy about it, but obviously she's not. So, I mean, I'm pretty much sticking to, well, I can't say I've stuck to the outline so far. I've, put some things that kind of came to me as I was writing. And so it's interesting about outlining versus when you get into writing the draft, because there's always going to be like, there's some scenes where in the outline I say, oh, there's a confrontation, or there's an argument, or there's a conversation that happens, and it gets heated. And sometimes when I'm writing it out, it may be more heated than I initially planned. Or in one case, she was having a conversation with her best friend, and I had initially planned on it being more heated than it actually turned out to be. I actually dialed it back in the writing of the scene because I just felt that it didn't call for it to be quite so heated. But so where we're at in the story now is I'm almost getting to the part where the secret daughter comes out. Well, the secret about the secret daughter doesn't come out completely, but where she gets the phone call from her aunt about the daughter needing help. But that's the next chapter I'm going to be on. Up until this point, it's just been this autumn being clear that she loves Kyle, but she's not really in love with him, and she'll like skirt around the words of saying in love. I love him. Like her best friend Morgan will say, well, you don't seem like you're in love with him. She's like, but I love him. And it's the safeness of being with somebody dependable and reliable. And I think I'm doing a good job of alternating between POVs and not pulling the reader out. At least I hope I'm doing a good job. The point where I'm at now, Autumn she's been distant from Cal. It's clear to her best friend, at least, that she's not really into getting married. And no, she's doing it for reasons that she don't want to be alone. She wants somebody safe and dependable and reliable, and not for the reasons you should get married. She goes to her father for advice, which he gives good advice, but it's kind of like, I think she wants him to tell her what to do. And that's not what he's going to give her. He's like, look, I can tell you this, that, and the other, but you still have to make up the decision for yourself. And then we have the part where Bryant shows up, which is in chapter 2. Well, he shows up in chapter 2. She doesn't know he's there until we get to chapter 3. And in chapter 2, he comes to the father's house, and he shows up, and he's talking about, at the end, feeling guilty and not knowing if she'll forgive him for what he did. You don't really know what he did. He doesn't really mention what he did at that point. And then she sees him. There's this, I hope I've conveyed the spark between them. I have to go back and check that out, but I hope I've conveyed the spark between them enough. This is going to be interesting editing this second draft also. Just, for giggles. But, we'll see. But right now, I am getting ready to work on this scene between Javon and Bryant. Javon is the ex, the one who abandoned her and her son. And we're just getting into, you just finding out basically, the reader's just finding out basically that, they already knew because Bryant kind of alluded to it and said something about it before, but this is kind of like Bryant admitting to someone other than himself that he tipped off the police. He's the reason why Javon left town or felt he needed to leave town. He's basically the reason why Autumn ended up a single mother raising her child alone. And even though he did it to be protective of her, one could argue that maybe he did it because he didn't like the fact that she went back to him. And I'm not saying that is a part of it, but could be. I don't know. Some things are coming out in this argument, the dialogue, that I didn't even have planned to write. So it's very interesting. I love dialogue. I don't know if I've said that here before, but I love dialogue. And what's interesting about writing conversations when there's an argument taking place is you can have initially planned the argument to go one way, but when you start actually dialoguing and writing the actual argument out, I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was going to go there. I didn't know I was going to mention that. I didn't even know where that came from. But here it is. And now we got to work with it. So I'm going to go work with this scene. I'll be back. Whew, okay. I like how I ended this chapter. I just ended chapter 7, which is Javon's chapter. I like how I ended it, but I'm not entirely sure that it's the right way I ended to end it. But I started thinking during the chapter, should I write it like it's him talking to, he's a little delusional by the end, but should I write it like it's him talking to himself, or should I write it in the omniscient, like the narrator type voice? I don't know. It would be the only chapter that was written that way if I did. Because some parts, it's like, yeah, obviously, with the dialogue, the conversation, the argument back and forth between him and Brian, clearly it's going to be from his perspective. But then there's the other parts where there's the inner dialogue, the self-talk, where I'm like, would it be better if I did it kind of like as a narration? And I don't think so, but I think I probably would need someone from outside perspective to tell me yes or no. But then if I did that, then the dialogue would no longer fit, or it wouldn't make sense. So I don't know, but the way I just ended this chapter, him and his drunken high stupor. Drunk and high. I'm not entirely sure that it's worded right, but that's what CPs and editors are for. So, now on to chapter 8, which is Autumn's chapter, and that is also the chapter where Cassie's gonna pop up. And Spencer's gonna come into play, and all hell's gonna break loose in chapter 9, which is when she tells Brian, hey, remember that daughter that you thought I didn't have? Well, guess what? I had her. And she's sick. And she needs out. So, yeah, there's that. No time to sugarcoat anything. But, like, I have it in my head how the dialogue for that part is going to go. I don't have the dialogue written out in the outline, but I kind of have the gist of the general feel of the way I want the chapter to be. But you know, that's what happens when you get from outline to actually drafting. As you're writing it and the characters start kind of dictating things for themselves, things change. And sometimes, you know, there's rage in a scene where you didn't mean for there to be, and there's less rage than you meant for there to be, and people are supposed to be upset, but they're kind of dialed down because that's what the scene calls for now. And it's just, it's fun. I love outlining. I love drafting. Outlining I probably love a little more, but I do love the transition from outlining to drafting, where I know people think there's the outlining means there's this hard and fast rule that you must stick strictly to the outline, but it's so fun for it to not stick to the outline. The outline is good structure. It has good bones. I can come back to it if I get too far off, veer too far away from the overall point. But, you know, I always tend to go off script, if you know what I mean. But I'm having fun drafting this. I can't wait to read it back once it's done. That will be interesting. For this last little sprint that I did, I got, let's see how many words I got. Because this is my third sprint for the day. 678. I got quite a few words written today, which I'm very happy about. But I'll be back to update probably when I start chapter 8. I don't know where this episode is going to end. I really wish I had started this episode 7 when I started drafting chapter 1 so that I could kind of talk through, but now it's like I've already written the first 6 chapters, so I'm like, I don't remember. I mean, I remember. I'll be back to update you guys. Okay, so I know that the last update I said I would be back when I started chapter 8. Well, I'm in chapter 12 now, so I did not come back. So chapter 8 was about Autumn coming to grips with the fact that Javon was back in town, demanding to see their son, and even though, she had just kind of had it out with him in chapter 6. I think I forgot that I didn't go over that. She had a confrontation with him. He was at her father's house. So she went, and at first she still felt that fear that she felt all those years ago. But then she kind of got some strength about her and confronted I was about to say confronted her demons, but she basically let him know she was not afraid of him anymore. And with her father in the next room probably helped. Because what was he really going to do to her with her father in the next room? And, you know, then there was the chapter with Javon confronting Bryant, and that ended with him in a drunken high stupor. And chapter 8 is with her processing everything that just happened. Even her standing up to Javon, and she's in her home with Kyle, and Kyle is talking to her about wedding stuff and other stuff, and she's not really hearing him. She's growing more and more distant. She was already distant at the start of the book anyway, because she wasn't sure she wanted to marry him, that she was marrying him for the right reasons. And then she had her best friend in her ear trying to convince her, you know, you don't really love this guy. You love him, yes, but you shouldn't marry someone just to feel safe, just because you've gotten hurt, just because you want to feel like, you know, you're with someone who would never hurt you. That's not a good enough reason to marry someone and spend the rest of your life with someone. It's not fair to them. So I think she's starting to realize that for herself, but then all of these people from the past keep popping up and reminding her of the hurt that she's kind of walled herself off from and doesn't want to feel. But she's so conflicted right now, and so she's growing more and more distant from Cal, which he feels, and kind of calls her out on it, and she's like not processing. So she ends up she didn't kick him out, but she kind of abruptly left in the middle of their conversation. She goes to Morgan's house, who's her best friend, and I think I've explained that before, but just in case. Then that's chapter 8 is when she gets the call from Cassie about the daughter she gave up, and it's when she realizes, oh shit, I have to tell this man who I'm pretty sure, you know, who she's pretty sure she's still in love with, but, you know, she hadn't really thought about what they had all those years ago until he popped up at town. I'm talking about Bryant. And so now she's like, I have to tell him that I lied to him all these years. And so she talks to Cassie. Cassie tells her Spencer is sick, and they basically need to come. She needs a bone marrow transplant, and, you know, it's best to test both the parents at the same time, just in case one of them isn't a match. You don't have to waste time trying to get the other one there to see if they're a match. So she has to tell Bryant the truth. So that's in chapter 9, where Bryant gets informed, and he's stunned, and he's like, what are you talking about? I know you got pregnant, but we both decided we were too young, blah, blah, blah. Even though Ryan actually tried to convince her to have the baby, she was like, no. So he went along with it, and he thought, you know, she took care of it, and she did not. So he's understandably angry. Then that goes into chapter 10. No. Okay, yeah. That goes into chapter 9 is when Bryant learns the truth. And then he goes, and he's like, he can't, and he's angry, understandably so. But he can't really talk to anyone about it because Javon is his best friend, or was his best friend. So he obviously can't talk to him because that was, you know, complicated situation. He can't really talk to her best friend because he's not entirely sure she even knows. And plus, it's Autumn's best friend, so why would he go talk to her? He can't go talk to her father, who is like his father to him, because if she didn't tell him, she probably didn't tell her father. So he's not going to blow up her secret to her father like that, even though he'd be perfectly within his right to do so. he obviously can't talk to his fiance because his fiance doesn't even know that him and Autumn had a thing. So he ends up at the cemetery where his mother's buried and talking to, his mom that way, talking things out, talking things through. And he realizes that, yes, he's angry at her and he has a right to be angry at her, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't do the right thing and actually go and help his daughter. And that goes into chapter, chapter 10. So, because at the end of chapter 9, he calls Autumn and he basically says, okay, when do we leave? When does our flight leave? Or whatever. So, he's agreeing to go. Chapter 10, Autumn's getting ready. She's setting things up. She's going to have her son stay at Morgan's house. Cal gets upset. She gives him this vague excuse of where she's going out of town to help a family member or whatever. And he's questioning, well, why are you taking Jason, the son, to stay at Morgan's? Why not just stay here with me? I watch him and pick him up from school any other day. This is like she's going to be gone for like 2 weeks. So, give or take. And he's like, well, we're going to get married and you don't trust me to watch your son? Like, what kind of shit is that? So they get into this back and forth argument and whatnot, and he leaves the house. He's upset. Understandable. Everybody's upset at Autumn, and they have a right to be. And she's just conflicted and confused and doesn't know what the hell she wants to do. Or can't seem to figure out the right thing to do. And even though in her heart she knows, but she's not listening to her heart right now. So she thinks she shouldn't listen to her heart. But so she arranges with Morgan, and then it ends up telling Morgan everything about Spencer. And after she arranges Morgan to keep Jason for time while she's going to be out of town, of course she's her best friend, so she knows when something's off and something's wrong. So she tells her and everything. And chapter 11 is Kyle's chapter, and you get a glimpse into his thinking. And he's going to his home, which he barely goes to anymore because he's always at Autumn's house. They're getting ready to be married. So the idea is that they would both be moving into her house anyway. So he's rarely ever home. He goes home, which is like become his dumping ground. He's having a fit, throwing things around. He's upset. I mean, he doesn't have anger issues. It's just the culmination of everything has just kind of made him take it out on his things in his home. And not like breaking anything up or anything, just throwing some things around. So he's upset. He calls his foster brother, talks some things through. His foster brother tells him, well, maybe this separation while she's out of town will be good. She can clear her head, get her shit together. And, Cal can do the same. And he's like talking over, he's already been married to someone for the wrong reasons. When he married his first wife, it was because of the child that they had, and they didn't, they married to provide a 2-parent home for the child, but they didn't really love each other. So, they got divorced. They still remain friends and co-parents or whatever, but he doesn't want to get married again if it's not going to last. He doesn't want to marry for the wrong reasons. He doesn't want to marry someone who doesn't want to be married to him. So he's just like conflicted and confused because he really, really loves Autumn. And she really, really doesn't love him. Not the way he deserves to be loved and the way that he loves her. And at this time in the book, he doesn't know anything. I think she does in their fight between each other. She mentions Javon coming back. She mentions Bryant coming back into town, but she doesn't mention the romantic history that Bryant and her share. So he knows that Bryant was Javon's best friend and that he's back. And that Javon is back into town demanding to see their son, which, but she doesn't tell him the extent of everything. So he's thinking right now, that them two popping back is kind of bringing back all of the old pain and hurt that she was so guarded by when he first met her. So that's where he's thinking right now. And he's just like, oh, well, maybe she just needs to come around and realize I'm not going to hurt her, you know, whatever. He didn't realize the extent of the history. So now I'm in chapter 12 where they're going to Denver, and that is where I am currently at. And I've just started, I took a week off of writing my story last week. That first week of NaNo, I took, first week after NaNo, I took a self-care week in which I did not work on any of my writing projects for that first week. So I am just now hopping back into the story. So I'm on chapter 12. She's on the plane. Bryant just got on the plane and he's understandably not speaking to her. And I think she said something to, oh, so you're just not going to ever talk to me again? And he says, not forever, but I need some time to process everything, and you owe me that. So, and that is where I have left off in my chapter right now. And yeah, that's where I'm at. We'll pick up in episode 8, hopefully chapter 13. So there you have it. You're all caught up. I think I caught you up as well as I could. I really should have been step by step videoing each chapter or whatever. I was so excited and happy in getting into writing the second draft that I just didn't think to stop and film it. And I'm so sorry, because that was what this whole thing was supposed to be chronicling, and I messed up. I will try not to do that for episode 8, which should pick up in the midst of chapter 12 and going into chapter 13, because I'm in the beginning of chapter 12, so I haven't gotten far. But I feel I should cut this episode off now because it's already gone awry. So that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more videos from me, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. I post videos on Mondays and Thursdays. I live stream on Wednesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As per usual, if you would like to support me in any of my creative endeavors, such as my blog site, my online magazine, my online store, or my Ko-fi page, all of those links can be found in the description box below. And until next time, have a blessed day. Bye.